Activist or ally intentions often get caught in the slippage between advocacy and imperialism. Natalie Corey-Toe also notes that the real circumstances that force targets or marginalized groups of people to reluctantly call for international solidarity are in conflict with the pragmatic uses of first world citizenship to mobilize solidarity. And we see this play out a lot in a lot of African countries when it comes to queer rights, where they are dismissed or repressed as agents of regime change. Because of the uneven power dynamics and the power of dominance and dependency inherent in international solidarity, causes and issues can easily be hijacked to push political or neoliberal or imperialist agendas, and this very reality makes for readily available justifications by despotic governments to dismiss or ignore at best, or demonize, repress, or persecute at worst said causes, and in this case, queer rights activism. It reinforces the tragic misconceptions that being queer is a Western import or an African thing because of the associations with queer activism with international allies.
Our communities need to engage with difference. I don't care how you feel about homosexuality as an individual. I don't want you to love everyone. I don't care what your religion says about two men having sex, or two women having sex, or two men loving each other, or two women loving each other, or three people loving each other. I don't care how you conceive that. However, you must understand that your rights to that religious expression, the rights to your freedom of expression, are intricately linked to other people's rights. So while we want to denote a sense of interdependence, it also recognizes the unconditional sphere of personhood, respect, dignities, values of acceptance. To put it simple, when we say, at least in my language, we say umuntu ngabantu, we also implied that abantu umuntu. Yes. If community is an essential condition to personhood, then the assumption in that claim is that personhood must exist. So how do these concepts help us? As Lama pointed out, I think, we've celebrated too quickly. Because for as long as there is an oppressed person in this country, on grounds that are explicitly prohibited by the Constitution, all of us should see that as an unfreedom for all of us. More importantly, those expressions of oppression, black people oppressing other people, are simply expressions of internalized oppression. We continue to regurgitate the notion that certain things are un-African because we haven't taken time to interrogate the concept of Africanism. What does it mean? If you're going to tell us something is an African and be willing to murder someone over it, you should at least be able to explain what does it mean to you.
What else did this HIV thing bring to the queer movement in Africa? And in answering this question, I speak to two issues. The first is, I believe that the juxtaposition of HIV and queer identity in Africa has led to the sexualization. I think that's an actual word. The next one I'm going to say, I don't think is an actual word. And let me hope I can get it. The diseasification of queer identity. Okay? So, this juxtaposition has basically made reduced queer identities to sex and disease. And so we couldn't talk about who we were as individuals, our identities as queer folks, if we weren't talking about sex or if we weren't talking about a disease. And at the time, a disease that was a death sentence. And it's important to interrogate how this has affected this has affected the discourse on queer inclusion, queer acceptance, queer equality in many of our African contexts. And so I'll just quote a few individuals. A guy called Tom Bollerstoff traces the history of the term MSM. So that was a term I was asked to speak about. But MSM means men who have sex with men. Okay? And it was a a term that was initiated as an attempt by public health, epidemiologists, and health professionals to separate the behavior, the sexual activity that was high risk for HIV, from the identity of the persons who practiced it. Okay? And it was initially intended to expand HIV efforts to men who have sex with men, including those who may not identify as gay. And it was so that was how the history of this term came. But it also formed a very nice cover for countries who didn't want to talk about gay people in their communities, or the fact that gay was a reality of their cultural context. So it was easy to say, let's talk about this thing that they are doing, not who they are. And so we've carried the baggage of MSM. And increasingly now I'm hearing WSW, and it infuriates me. Not because I do not think that women who have same-sex erotic relationships should be part of the HIV conversation, but because I think that we need to interrogate the terms we appropriate to ourselves and to our struggles much more deeply, especially when we have the benefit of the baggage of another group that has carried a similar burden. You know, we shouldn't just appropriate these things.
That the notion of global LGBTQ solidarity has to be widely challenged and criticized for its ethnocentricity and insensitivity to cultural difference, as it is often met by local political powers and structures as an imposition of Western values. And we saw this happen in Kenya not too long ago, when President Obama attempted to advocate for queer rights on his visit there. So as legitimate as that, and as legitimate and as justified and important and urgent as that call was, the fact that it was coming from the United States, or the President of the United States, made it easy for the government to dismiss that and get support from a majority of the population in Kenya. It doesn't help that, as articulated by Carl F. Steiden in his study, Same-Sex Sexualities and the Globalization of Human Rights Discourse, that there indeed has been a globalization of same-sex sexualities as identities at an individualistic or cosmopolitan perspective, while at the same time, at the same time, there has been a general distrust of globalization and a critique thereof as a form of neo-colonialism, as well as when there has been a resurgence in Pan-Africanism and a push, even at AU level, towards a more communalist framework. These two things, Steiden argues, are more likely to come into conflict as opposed to actually complement each other.